So today, we're going to talk about a case that is just truly chilling. It's about one of America's most prolific serial killers. But, a lot of people haven't even heard of him. And the craziest part? The story of the Houston mass murders, it actually starts at the very end. All right, I want you to picture this. It's August 8th, 1973. We're in a pretty rough neighborhood on the edge of Houston, Texas. An unmarked police car rolls up to these old steel storage sheds. They've got one specific unit in mind, number 11. Now, with the police is a 17-year-old kid named Elmer Wayne Henley. He's their witness, and this quote from Detective Seeker, man, it just paints a picture. It's the moment they pop open the shed and Henley looks inside. His face goes white. See, he wasn't just a witness. He's the one who brought them there. And he knew exactly what was waiting for them in the dark. Yeah, so that's where we're starting, right at the shocking end. The discovery that finally put a stop to 3 years of absolute terror. So the detectives' eyes start to adjust to the dark, and they begin to take in the scene. And what they see, well, it's just a collection of nightmares. You've got these big sacks of lime, which, if you know anything about this stuff, is a massive red flag. Lime is used to make bodies decompose faster. Then they see a kid's yellow bike, and their hearts just sink. They run the checks, and yep, it belonged to a 13-year-old boy who had gone missing just 5 days before. At this point, there's no question. They have to dig. They get a couple of inmates from a local prison to start turning over the dirt floor. It doesn't take long. Like 15 minutes in, their shovels hit something soft, a layer of white lime. And then the smell hits them. The unmistakable, overwhelming smell of death filling up that hot, stuffy shed. Right after that, they found a boy's skull, and they just kept digging. For 2 whole days in that brutal Texas heat, they just kept digging. The final tally from that one single shed? 17. 17 bodies and skeletons. Unbelievable. So you have to ask yourself, who could do something like this? Who is capable of this kind of horror? Well, that brings us to the man at the center of this whole nightmare.
A guy named Dean Corll. And to his neighbors, he was just a friendly, quiet guy. If you look at Corll's early life, it doesn't immediately scream serial killer. His parents had a rocky relationship, divorced, got back together, the usual stuff. They moved to Houston and started a candy company that actually did pretty well. And it was at that factory that Dean got his nickname, the Candy Man. Why? Well, because he was always giving out free sweets to the kids from the school nearby. But that whole friendly Candyman thing, it was a complete act, a mask. His so-called generosity was actually something much darker. It was a calculated, manipulative process we now call grooming. He was earning the trust of kids, of an entire community really, all for one terrible, terrible reason. And what's so wild is that he was doing all of this right out in the open. I mean, the free candy was just the start. He put a pool table in the back of the factory to draw in older teenage boys. He'd give them rides in his van. He hosted parties at his house with booze and drugs. He basically made himself the cool adult. At one point, a kid who worked for him went to Corll's own mother and told her Dean offered him money for, well, And what did she do? She fired the kid, not her son. It's just incredible. He was hiding in plain sight. And here's where the story gets even more twisted, if you can believe it. Corll didn't do all of this by himself. No, he had help. He actually recruited 2 teenage boys to be his apprentices in this horror. So you've basically got this deadly trio. First, there's Dean Corll. He's the mastermind behind it all. Then there's David Brooks, his first partner in crime, a kid Corll had been grooming since he was just 12. And then there's Elmer Wayne Henley, the high school dropout who, ironically, is the one who ends it all. So how on earth did he turn these kids into accomplices? Well, with David Brooks, it was a long game, years of grooming. Corll basically became his father figure. Then one day, Brooks walks in and sees Corll assaulting two other boys. Now at that moment, he has a choice, but instead of running, he's made an offer: a car and $200 for every boy he brings back to the apartment. And he said yes. Elmer Wayne Henley was brought in later, lured by the same promises of easy money and a bit of, I guess you'd call it, excitement. So now, with his team in place, Corll's operation kicks into high gear, and for the next 3 years, he unleashes this wave of terror on Houston. Boy after boy just vanishes. Just look at this timeline. It really shows you how things just spun out of control.
Look at the dates. It's just one after another. Consistent. You see cases like the Waldrop brothers, 2 boys from the same family, gone. It's devastating. And then look at the end there. August 1973. 5 victims in just 3 weeks. The pace was just accelerating until it all blew up. The question you have to be asking is, how did this go on for so long? And honestly, this is maybe the most heartbreaking part of the whole thing. You got to remember the time period. This is the early 70s. When these terrified parents would go to the police, they were just brushed off. The cops labeled the boys as runaways. One dad was literally told to stop wasting police time. Can you imagine? So while the authorities were doing nothing, these families were destroying their lives, trying to find their kids, going into debt to hire PIs, putting up flyers everywhere, chasing down any little lead. So when all was said and done, the official body count was 29, at least 29 boys and young men. But here's the thing. Both Henley and Brooks said there were other burial sites, other places they buried bodies that were never ever dug up. One was supposedly under a parking lot. So the real number? It could be much, much higher. We'll probably never know for sure. And that brings us back to where we started, to that final night, the night this whole twisted partnership just completely fell apart. Okay, so it's August 8th. Elmer Wayne Henley shows up at Corll's house with 2 of his friends for a party, a guy named Timothy Curley and a 15-year-old girl, Rhonda Williams. And this was a huge mistake, because bringing a girl there, it set Corll off. Henley later said Corll absolutely hated women. So they're at the house, huffing paint, and eventually they all pass out. This is when Corll makes his move. He ties up all 3 of them, Henley included. When they wake up, Corll starts torturing Timothy, and in that moment of pure terror, Rhonda looks over at Henley, also tied up, and whispers to him, "Are you gonna do anything about it?" It's a challenge, and something in Henley snaps. He manages to talk Corll into untying him, saying he'll help with the torture. But the second he's free, he grabs Corll's own gun and points it right at him. But Corll, he's so arrogant, such a manipulator to the very end. He just looks at him, totally calm, and says, "You won't do it." Well, he was wrong. Elmer Wayne Henley fired 6 times, and Dean Corll, the Candyman, was dead. And right after, Henley picks up the phone, calls the police, and says, "I have killed a man." And that's the phone call that led them to the house and to that boat shed. So what happened next? Well, both Henley and David Brooks confessed to everything. They laid out the whole 3-year nightmare for the police. For his role, Henley got 6 consecutive 99-year sentences. Brooks got life. And as far as I know, they're both still behind bars today. But even with the confessions, so many questions still hang over this case. And really, that's the biggest question of all, isn't it? How did a monster like the Candyman get away with it in plain sight for so long? I mean, yes, it's a story about a predator for sure, but it's also a story about failure, the failure of institutions that are supposed to protect us. It's about a time when a missing kid was just a runaway, and the friendly guy giving out candy was just a friendly neighbor. It really makes you stop and think, right? What warning signs are we all still missing today?